Welcome in, everybody. Happy Wednesday night on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. Robbie Lastella here alongside my co-hosts Drew Shula, Christian Proscia. Welcome back, Drew. Happy to have you here with us talking some ball tonight, some football. And Christian, as always, never leaves right alongside as well. Guys, how's it going?
Going well. Haven't heard Barely Alive in a while, so good touch on the intro music, Rob. Yeah, excited for what should be a loaded, fun episode filled with a lot of good talk about our favorite college football team.
Yeah, it's a great night on the Lastella Report as always. We got 50 days until college football, gentlemen. Are you guys as excited as I am? I've been posting about it kind of a lot today.
50, huh? I
Yep.
didn't know that. Yeah, I'm excited. That'll be
50 and counting.
Yeah, it'll really set in for me. I'm set to go up to Texas in a couple weekends for the AAC Media Days. And I think once I see Coach Tom, Biff Poggi, Tim Pernetti, and all the players, all the AAC people, right there in one kind of building. It'll get me dialed in, ready for this upcoming season. If I'm not already, I hopped on a podcast on Tuesday with the amazing people over. At the G5 Hive. You can find them on YouTube, Twitter as well at G5 Hive. Set to air next Tuesday. Good breakdown of. They asked me a ton of stuff about FAU football. I don't want to spoil too much. We'll talk a little bit, kind of jumping off what I talked about on there without hopefully spoiling it, because there's a ton of good stuff. They really wanted to learn about the Owls program, and I gave them the best I got. I always appreciate people from an outside perspective who want to get to know more about the program and about any program, really, not just FAU. I mean, I love people who are from the middle of nowhere, Iowa, that care about FIU football, or all the random G5 schools that don't necessarily get the love they should. So shout out the G5 Hive. That airs next Tuesday, specific FAU episode with me and the crew over there. So, but jumping in off of that, we talked a lot on that podcast kind of about each position and what's coming forward. And we're not going to sit here and break down each position tonight. We'll save that for next week after the episode comes out. But I do want to touch on a few things, though, related to that episode. Because there was a bunch of things as I'm sitting there talking and hearing from these guys over at the G5 Hive. And, one thing that stood out to me really was the fact that FAU has a ton of depth at a lot of positions. I mean, we're going through each position. I'm talking, and I don't really like to write out too much. I kind of like to speak off the dome a little bit. And so I'm realizing I'm finishing like each of my statements about each position group with, yeah, there's a ton of depth at this position. There's going to be a lot of guys who are competing for that top of the line starting spot. And I kind of sounded like a broken record after a while. So, guys, if you do see that when it comes out, I'm sorry. But I'm being 100% honest. I think FAU has a ton of depth at a lot of positions, specifically really receiver and DB, cornerback, safety. Having a ton of depth at both of those positions. And I think that was kind of an issue last season with injuries kind of hurting the squad out a little bit. And so now with having so much depth, that kind of brings you the ability to have guys who can come in and play in multiple packages. You don't have to have guys who are out there for every single down. So Drew, we've talked about a little bit about the depth that comes in with this squad, but with depth comes the sleeper tag for these guys who are, maybe not be the most jumping out name on the depth or the roster where we're at right now. No depth chart yet. But, kind of taking a look at this squad a little bit. Doesn't have to be receiver or cornerback. That's just kind of the two positions I kind of look at where there's a definite chance for sleepers. But is there anyone on this squad to you that kind of jumps out as, okay, maybe they're not getting enough attention and I think they have a chance to shine next season?
Yeah. Are we doing offense and defense? We started with offense first, and
give me what you got, man. I mean, if you want to talk both right now, go for it. Let's do it. We got sleepers on both sides. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll do both. It was I wanted to do because there's a lot, but if I'm gonna do this, I want to do one on offense, one on defense. There's a bunch of guys you could do. Um, this receiver room is so different from a year ago. I think what was it? It wasn't Jay Sean Platt, our leading receiver, and he has I think single digit yards. So that's how much production we lost, but I don't see a reason to fear Owls fans. There's a ton of players that come in with FBS production at receiver. So at running back, I feel like it's kind of redundant. We kind of know what we're getting into. We saw a good C.J. Campbell, Jamari Sands, even Zuberi. We know what he can do. So we kind of know what the running back room should look like. So my sleeper on the offensive side is going to be Milan Tucker. So we saw him in the spring game. He had a 41-yard touchdown. We believe it was taken off due to a penalty, but still, 41-yard touchdown. He produced at App State this past year. Balanza, he's probably going to be one of the more reliable guys in what, we're going to need reliable receivers in this offense because of how much production we lost. No LeJonte Wester anymore. So I think Milan coming over, probably playing a little more in the slot. He's a little bit smaller than, for example, Marlon Johnson, 6'4". So Milan, he should get a lot of production, whether he's the guy stepping out first play against Michigan State. Maybe he's not, but that's what a sleeper's for. So I think Milan, you kind of know what you're getting out of him. You'll get some production. Can he take over a game? Maybe, but probably not. He'll probably be a little more of a 5-catch-a-game guy, which is still a lot. Maybe probably a little less, but still. And so that's my offensive guy, Milan Tucker.
I like
on
it.
defense. There's a lot on defense. I think the guy that I think it's so the reason why is because I think the cornerback room is kind of not set in stone. We kind of saw Day Hill and Bugs Brown on the outside for the red team at the spring game. Wendell Philord is impressed out of the nickel. Philip Dunham's going to be a starting safety. So kind of the question for me was who's going to start at the other safety spot because Jaron Morris and Armani Eli Adams, who were the starters last year, are no longer here. For me, I think my defensive sleeper is going to be Jaden Williams. And maybe it surprises some people because, he's been playing since he was a freshman on Willie Taggart's staff. He was getting a lot of playing time. But I think he might be playing a little bit of a new role this year. I think, we need two guys lining up too high. I think that Jaden Williams is going to be that guy next to Philip Dunham. So that's kind of my thing. And then, he's played a lot of nickel, a lot of that big nickel kind of package, kind of maybe star role. Some teams use that kind of terminology. I think because we're going to play some run-heavy teams, I think we know that Michigan State week 1, they're going to run the ball a lot with their new head coach, Jonathan Smith. We know Army is going to run the hell out of the ball. Teams like Charlotte use multiple tight ends and run the ball a whole lot. So there's going to be teams that they're going to pound the rock. Maybe you take Wendell Philord, who's only 5'8", 170 pounds off, and you put in Jaden Williams, who's a little bit bigger, and he's played kind of that role before, a little more physical. So I think that's kind of the role for Jaden Williams, where he could play, at strong safety, but also kind of move down into the box a little bit. So that's going to be my defensive sleeper because I think out of everyone, he won't get the praise he deserves, but I think he's going to be a really good football player for us.
And I think that kind of, a guy that's kind of stuck it out from Herman's staff or from Taggart's staff now here to Herman's staff and is really kind of moving up the ladder. Herman's a guy who likes to promote from within. We saw that with Ryan Beer, Jeff Love recently on the staff side of things. And I feel like that trickles over to the player side of things too. Go looking at the quarterback position, a guy like Ty Starks, he's putting in a ton of work over the offseason. I feel like stuff like that gets noticed by Tom Herman. He loves it. Love guys who he can promote from within that stick it out and really work in his system. Christian, we'll get to you in a second because I know you got a diverse group of sleepers for us, but I'll jump in and give mine real quick. I've got two wide receivers that I'm really high on headed into this season. Both really can be diverse. I'll start with Omari Hayes. Had a big game in the spring game. I believe he caught like 6 balls for 81 yards, something along those lines. And he was a real menace in the slot. He was really diverse, catching screens, working over the middle, really shifty, making guys miss. And then talking with him, he's a guy who was on this team now the past 2 years, and he sat behind a lot of talent. And he's kind of taking that on the chin a little bit, kind of chip on the shoulder type deal. And now he's kind of got a chance to shine in his own right. And he's a slot guy. And Tom Herman loves his slot guys. And so if Omari Hayes is put in a position to where he is the slot guy, I find it hard to believe that he is not popping off in this offense, especially another thing I like to see is in that spring game, he showed connectivity with both quarterbacks, Cam and Ty Starks. So should Ty win the job? Should Cam win the job? Should they have multiple packages like we saw with Michael Johnson Jr.? I feel like Omari is a guy who's going to be able to fit in this offense no matter who's taking the reins at quarterback, especially because he's been here now for a couple of years and he's had the rotating cycle of quarterbacks. I'm sure he's caught passes from Casey, might have caught a pass from Javion Posey. So he's seen different types of quarterbacks and he's had that success with this new group coming in here. So I'm really high on Omari headed into next season. And then another guy transfer into this squad, Joseph Young, JUCO guy from Coffeyville. May be familiar with that name if you watch Last Chance U. Coffeyville was an opponent of Independence a lot of times in that one. But Joe was up in Coffeyville this past year. And I talked with him as well. And he's a guy who enjoyed that grind of the JUCO level and getting his reps there. And he really did well in terms of statistics. He hauled in last season, played in 13 games, hauled in 364 yards and 5 touchdowns, playing a mix of both the slot and the outside. And watching his film a little bit, that's what really stood out to me, is he was a guy who was able to impact the game from inside, outside, doing variety of things, kind of like Omari. He was catching screens. He was blowing by guys on the outside, just beating them one-on-one and catching the deep ball. And he was another guy that was really good with like the jukebox type moves. I mean, at least I'm sure the tape was highlighting some of the best of the best, but he was making some guys miss in open space. And as a receiver, that's huge. We saw LeJontay be able to do that. He was a very good guy in open space. And I think Joe is as well. He caught, I believe, one pass for a big gain, 30-something yards in the spring game. Say that again?
2 big ones, I think.
2. So, yeah. Okay. So I remember the one. I don't have Genesis's paper stat sheet anymore. Shame on me. But shout out Genesis for making that in the first place. But yeah, I think both of those guys will have a chance to really shine in this offense next season. Even if Omari is the guy who wins the slot job, I think Joe's diverse, so he'll have the ability to kind of play inside and out. So give me Joe Young, give me Omari Hayes this season out of the wide receiver room for the Owls. I think they're really going to be 2 threats for FAU this season. And now Christian's been waiting patiently. He's got some defensive sleepers. He's got some offensive sleepers. Maybe. I don't know. What's cooking up in your mind, Christian? Who you got for us?
Oh, y'all don't want to know what's cooking up in my mind, first off. That's my the inner mechanisms of my mind is an enigma. Shout out Patrick the Star. But oh yeah, SpongeBob references on the Lastella Report. Got to keep it light. My offensive sleeper, and it's going to be surprising because I don't think anybody's going to really agree with me, is Ty Starks, actually. Because on the sole reason of we still don't know who's winning the quarterback battle. You bring in a quarterback out of the portal, obviously everybody assumes that Cam's going to be QB1, but Ty's been giving him hell in practice. So Ty hasn't rolled over and died. He hasn't given up the spot. He's fighting for it. So for that reason, I'm going to say Ty is my sleeper because we've said it multiple times. His development throughout the offseason has been night and day from what we saw in the fall versus what we saw in the spring, and he's only going to keep getting better. And he finally has a good coach. So I think that for that reason, Ty Starks is my sleeper. It's unconventional thinking that a quarterback would be a sleeper, but I'm happy with my pick. And then my uh, my defensive sleeper, I'm gonna have to go with my local guy. I'm gonna go with Mike Wright, safety out of Palm Beach Gardens. He's a rising freshman, true freshman. Should get a lot of playing time. We spoke about having such a talented secondary with guys like Day Day Bugs, Cam Goggins, Wendell. Like we've got the guys, and I think Mike's going to make an immediate impact over the top because my best way of describing Mike Wright is honestly Brian Dawkins. He is a C ball pick ball type guy or C guy with ball, give guy with ball CTE. That's what Mike Wright is bringing to the table. There's a reason he was a 3-star, and he is going to be a force to be reckoned with on this defense.
Yeah, that depth in the DB room is huge for the Owls this season. I was trying to go through it on the podcast I was on, and I'm like, man, like we've got guys who can start all over the place, swap in and out between safety, corner, and the depth is really what's going to make or break a season for a lot of teams, and I think the Owls got it heading into this season. I think their depth is really, really strong, and I just don't see injuries at least being the thing that takes this Owl squad down heading in to next year. So that was interesting. It was good to hear from you guys what you guys think are. Who's taking over some spots, who's stepping up this season for the Owls. As I mentioned, I'll have a more in-depth breakdown for you guys, not just the sleepers, but the guys who may be shooing in to start as well next week on Tuesday at the G5 Hive on YouTube. Make sure to be tuned with that. But kind of shifting over a little bit, talking some AAC hoops a little bit. Memphis, a move that kind of jumped out to me was Memphis going out and stealing PJ Carter from Rice. Carter was a 3-point specialist for UTSA this past season, had committed to Rice out of the transfer portal from UTSA, shot 40% this past season from three at the JUCO level in 2022, shot 42%. So he's headed to Memphis. He's a much needed wing for them. But the thing is with that pickup is he was a guy who wasn't necessarily locked in, had an NIL, quote unquote, offer, I'm sure, from Rice, but hadn't signed anything official, hadn't enrolled in classes yet. And sure enough, Slick Rick Stansberry, the associate head coach at Memphis, goes in and snags him away from conference rival Rice. So this brings the question to me, how big of an issue is it with these schools kind of offering NIL and then, push comes to shove, months go by, checks haven't been received. I don't know necessarily that's the case with PJ Carter, but there's some agents out there making some quote tweets about the situation. I'll have to, I believe it was Jordan Walsh, who was an agent who deals a lot with college basketball and the NIL landscape. The dogs are going crazy. Dogs aren't a fan of
mute button isn't working either, gentlemen. So bear with me.
But Drew, do you think that schools kind of poaching players away from other programs where the NIL maybe not be as strong? You think we'll see that be like a prevalent issue going forward, even with players that have already committed to these schools?
Yeah, because it's already happened. Like, this is nothing new. It was just like way harder to do it when NIL wasn't kind of so prevalent and open. Where we know, for example, like John L. Davis is getting paid $1.1 million to play at Arkansas. Like, it was either illegal, they were doing it under the table, or they just weren't doing it. And then you could find a way to stay at your less lucrative school, I guess is the way to say it. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And I don't see it going away. We kind of knew that was going to happen when NIL got off and running. So yeah, I mean, if you're Rice, no offense to them, but I think all their fans can admit if Memphis is going to hand out, I don't know, $100,000 to PJ Carter, Rice can't match that, and he will be going to Memphis.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, Christian, you saw that with football and everything that went on with UF. The dangers of NIL promises and not coming through with them. Do you think, Christian, you've seen it in full force in the football world? Where do you think the dangers of these NIL offers or are more dangerous, in football or basketball?
Between the two, college football is still a higher market value sport than college basketball, despite most people enjoying college basketball more than NBA recently. College football is still the more prominent sport. It is still the main cash cow of the NCAA. So it comes down to just schools over promising and under delivering. Excuse me. It's like how you brought up with UF, but the issue between this one versus UF is PJ Carter had not put his name on a dotted line. He hadn't enrolled in the school. He hadn't enrolled in classes. So here's the thing that everybody's got to realize: and even if that dude is taking English 1101 or whatever class you're in, until your name is on an NLI, National Letter of Intent, not NIL, until that happens, you are a free agent. You are able to flip your commitment. You are able to get your commitment waived by the school. It does not matter. It's the same in high school recruiting. It's the same out of portal recruiting. Until you're living on that campus, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want. And that's the sad reality, in my opinion. And dude, even when you're living on that campus, guess what? Guys that were in the portal were still living on campus down at FAU for all sports. I was hanging out with a bunch of guys that were in the portal, and they were just living down in IVA and all like the U Park, like all like the different spots on and off campus. And I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I'm in the portal. And a lot of these kids, they hit the portal just to say that they hit the portal, just so they can hit greener pastures. But guess what? When you're a true freshman that got redshirted and you're only in the portal with your high school film or some JUCO film, you're not gonna move that far up. So you gotta play the long game. Yeah, you're wasting years of eligibility, unfortunately, but fake an injury. Like get medically shut down for the year, whatever it takes. It's going to sound so scummy of me. I'm going 2 for 2 on scummy comments on the Lastella Report. Shout out to the one baseball comment from the other day. But get yourself shut down. You remember Gardner Minshew broke his own finger like his freshman year so he could medically redshirt for another year and get another year of eligibility. Like that's what, maybe not to that extreme, but that's some stuff that you also may have to weigh in as well.
Interesting stuff developing in terms of the world of NIL and in terms of the AAC, a new person in charge of that in Tim Pernetti. And he recently sat down with the Commercial Appeal, Memphis-based newspaper, and talked with them a lot about the conference and everything that's going on with it. Obviously, Memphis being a leader kind of sort of in the AAC and trying to get on out of the AAC. And so it was an interesting conversation. Some things that really jumped out to me. Memphis has been pro revenue sharing of, sharing the revenue that the athletic department makes with the team basketball, football, baseball, whoever needs the money, share it with them. And Tim Pernetti is not necessarily a fan of individualistic revenue sharing between each school and what they make. He wants to kind of see a revenue based sharing throughout the whole conference, and putting a cap on any outside based revenue sharing with these players to kind of even level the playing field. And I see where he's coming from with that, and I'm trust me, I want there to be even playing too. I don't want to see the teams who can pay the most money be the best. However, I also don't know if that's the best in terms of trying to send the best foot forward from the AAC to the college football playoff. Because if we're capping how much these guys can give, then maybe Memphis isn't as good as they are right now, and maybe they're not the team that everyone's talking about being a forefront along with Boise State to be that G5 playoff team. So there's got to be some kind of balance to it. I don't necessarily know if limiting individual revenue sharing and making it the conference is the way to go. Drew, do you kind of think there's any kind of power imbalance in the AAC, and do you think that revenue sharing could make it worse?
I get where he's coming from. One, I don't think it's, I guess, like kind of like with my just opinions on stuff, like I don't think it's morally correct. Not like immoral, but like where does that go against all the hard work and relationships these athletic directors have built with donors, with making correct hires? It kind of makes it seem like the bottom feeders of the conference can keep screwing up, can slack off, and they'll be given a whole lot from this new system. So I disagree with it. It kind of makes it seem like, hey, FAU gets an absolutely massive donor from, I don't know, that there's some company, Celsius gives a big big NIL donation. Then FAU's getting a whole lot of donations. Brian White's doing his thing, dominating, the coaching hires, and well, now. You see, I really don't want to pick on Rice. They beat us in football last year, so no one take it personal. But now the traditional Rice of basketball. It's you can't defend Rice basketball, but Rice basketball now is given a huge jump start, and FAU basketball is not able to dominate to the level that they should. So I disagree with that. And then that is a great point you brought up about the college football playoff. I don't know if it'll be a huge thing after this, because I think this is the only year that they're really fully sending a G5 auto bid. But yeah, like this year, if the American does not get a team into the college football playoff, Tim Pernetti should be. I mean, you can only do so much. He just became the commissioner. But I do think that, like, it's not embarrassing. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's disappointing. It's really disappointing if one of the American teams doesn't make because for so long it's been Power Six. The American was a Power Six. I really like Commissioner Oresco. I think he did a great job pushing that, because the American had an identity. I thought the American was sick before we were even in it. So. Pernetti's got his hands full, but I don't think he's really helping himself a whole lot. I don't know if the conference's success. I don't know if it's really. I don't think this is the right fit. I'll just say I don't really like him that much. I don't think like the move is really oriented towards what the Americans should be pushing for. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not. The jury is still out for me. I don't know necessarily. He's got a lot of smart ideas, and it's tough coming into a new conference, especially where it's at right now. But I think going forward, I want to see more of what he's been talking about kind of be put into action. And we mentioned the CFB playoff, and he was asked, is the AAC in favor of separating from the CFB and doing the G5 playoff thing that's been discussed, and he's not a fan of that at all. He mentioned the coach's recruiting pitch of saying that we're competing for a national championship here, and that may be cliche, but it's true. You can't say that if you're in the G5 playoff. So An interesting point he did bring up was the teams who don't receive that G5 playoff bid, the top four or whatever, however it works out, the bowl games that they get placed in, rather than they just be like separate off bowl games, they get turned into kind of like a G5 playoff, for lack of a better words. But it's alongside the CFB rather than separate from it. So it would be that is something I'm a fan of. More competition without eliminating the present competition in the CFB playoffs. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out, for sure. And then the last thing he said, that caught my interest was in terms of teams leaving the conference. He talked about Memphis. He was asked as a Memphis newspaper, does it bother you having a team in the conference that's so willing to leave? And he basically said, no. I mean, it doesn't bother him. He said expansion doesn't need to be a dirty word, and that it's something that can be talked about openly in the conference, because everyone, it's an understanding amongst college football and college basketball too, that conference realignment is coming, and it's here. And so he mentioned that Memphis has been a team that's done a lot for this conference, and so that the AAC kind of put Memphis in a position to be successful. And so he mentioned that it's not frustrating to have a team openly want to leave, but rather he'd rather focus on what he can control. And I think that's a smart approach to it. You don't want to cater to anybody. If Memphis wants to leave, if Rice wants to leave, if FAU, USF, whoever, greener pastures or not, go for it. So I'm interested to see how things shake out with the AAC in the next couple of years. It's a conference kind of right in the middle of it, in the middle of everything. The SHIT storm, as some people like to say. So I think that the AAC is in a real pickle because teams are trying to leave, but it's good to see that Tim Pernetti is not phased by it. So interesting stuff. I'm glad he sat down with a bunch of local reporters. The Commercial Appeal is a great newspaper in Memphis. So 9:34 here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. We're going to take a quick break. Christian's going to take a quick depart and come back, and hopefully we get his audio back here after a break. When we come back, we're talking everything with the NCAA CFB 25 video game set to early release next Monday at 4 p.m. Me, Drew, Christian got our 3 favorite sleeper squads for you. Maybe just 3, maybe 5, maybe 1. Who knows? But stay tuned, and we'll talk everything with you about the new video game coming out in just a moment. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Just past 9:30 here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. So, as we were mentioning, the NCAA 25 college football video game set to come out next Monday. We're all big fans of that here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. And today, probably, besides the gameplay at least, some of the biggest news with that came out. The top 100 rated players in that list. And to me, I think that that list is there. There's a lot going on with it. I don't know if it necessarily depicts the top 100 players in college football in real life. There is zero American Athletic Conference representation in there. I don't necessarily know if that should be the case. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But with the top 100 players. Obviously, Will Johnson, number one. We saw him, me and Christian, when we went up to Michigan. Christian, do you believe he is the number one guy in this class in all of college? First, do you think he is actually the best player in all of college football? And if so, do you also agree with the NCAA rating?
I fully support Will Johnson being the number one ranked player. If you sit down and really break down his game, he does a lot of things right. And especially as a corner, the easiest comparison of guy in college versus guy in college is him versus Travis Hunter. And he does a lot of things that are more refined than Travis Hunter, who a lot of people were saying could be the number one guy in the game. Will Johnson, he's more technical. Travis Hunter is more athleticism, like out athleting you. Will Johnson, he's methodical with it. I was breaking down a lot of his film earlier because for those that haven't read my article about top 10 possible Heisman candidates, y'all definitely should. Will Johnson was mentioned. Spoiler alert. He does a great job at reading the quarterback and understanding and analyzing what his read progression is. When the quarterback inevitably throws his way, which is usually a stupid decision because, once again, best corner in college football. A couple clips I saw is he stopped on a dime, he flipped his hips, and then high pointed and attacked the ball. That is textbook NFL corner level stuff. Like, as a Dolphins fan, me and Drew, we saw that all the time with Jalen Ramsey. Like, I love what I see out of Will Johnson. He's one of the few corners that I actually like better when he plays off versus when he plays in press man. So I love that he's the highest ranked guy because honestly, I thought that they were going to go quarterback. And unfortunately, there was a bunch of stupid quarterback ratings. Shedeur Sanders is not the best quarterback in college football. I don't know why ESPN thinks that Colorado is a top 10 team, top 10 offense, like top 12 defense. Whatever they had their ratings are, they're barely a top 10 team in their own conference. They went 1-8 in their conference play last year. So I do have a couple bones to pick. We'll get there in a minute. But to answer your question, long story short, Will Johnson is a great number one overall guy.
Drew, do you agree? Is Will Johnson the best player in college football, or is it just a video game decision?
No, yeah. I think he is the best player in college football. He would have, in a pretty good class last year of cornerbacks, I believe it was Quinyon Mitchell was the first corner taken.
Yep.
Will Johnson would have been taken ahead of him. That's what he was supposed to come out last year. He took the extra year. I think that's a fine decision because I think he'll once again be predicted to be the number one cornerback in his class, and rightfully so. And I agree. The Colorado Blaze. There's no way around it. I just don't even like talking about it because it's like so obviously a media stunt. Like if Deion Sanders coached at anywhere, they're just getting talked about because obviously, Shedeur is not the best the quarterback in college football. If we're talking about some things we disagree with, man, like I am not a Quinn Ewers fan. I really do think there's a lot. I think Arch Manning, I get it's a spring game. He looked way better than Quinn Ewers. But I'll say it. I don't mind. Arch Manning.
He just opted into the game too, though.
Yeah, he did. But I really don't think Ewers is that good. Yeah, I mean that's my thing with that. Um, and then I agree with pretty much all of that of what Christian said. I what I was surprised with is that one of my I think it's crazy Isaiah Bond. Now at Texas wide receiver, he was Alabama's #1 wide receiver last year. He wasn't a top 100 player. That was wild to me.
Yeah.
Like Cam Ward's a top 100 player in the country. That was surprising. Yeah, there was more. There was more players, but yeah, those are the two snubs for me.
And so as I mentioned, there was no AAC representation in the top 100, and I mean that's not egregious. AAC lost a ton of talent. Obviously, Lejonte Wester from FAU could have been. He's not in the top 100 at all, but he could have been. Potentially, he's gone from the Owls. Michael Pratt's off to the pros. Luke McCaffrey's off to the pros. One guy who maybe could have had an argument, but I don't know if he's necessarily a top 100 player in the country. Maybe I don't even know if he's a top 10 running back right now. He might be. It might be number 10. Maki Hughes. He was the American Rookie of the Year for Tulane this past season. He's right. I don't know necessarily he could be top 100 player, but he could be the best player in the AAC this season if Tulane decides to be a little bit more run heavy rather than pass heavy. Obviously, new system coming in there, and we'll see how that works out. But I think he's a really talented back. In terms of talent, he may be one of the top 100 players, but I don't know necessarily if ratings wise in a video game right now he would be top 100. Is there anyone in the AAC for you guys that should have been in the top 100, or was it right?
Seth Hannigan, quarterback Memphis, should have definitely been a top 100 player. I like him as the G5, the best G5 quarterback. I like him over Caden Salter from Liberty, who is a very good quarterback, by the way. I'm not dissing Salter when I say that, but I do like Hannigan and his play style better. I think it's more pro refined because honestly, K Salt's probably going to go to the league and be Malik Willis 2.0. Liberty kind of has that track record of not really producing NFL talents, but that's okay. They're up and coming. So I think Hannigan would have been my immediate first pick of why was this dude not a top 100 player.
Yeah, I forgot about him. That's my bad. What are you going to say, Drew? I might be to the contrary. Like, by the way, like, no disrespect. Seth Hennigan's awesome. I think he's the best quarterback in the AAC. He's going to go down as a Memphis legend, but I don't think I just don't see him as the top 100 player in the country. But that's just how good the country, like, for example, like, I think Grayson McCall, he was a 3-time Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year. He was not first team Player of the Year, but I think he was the Player of the Year a few times. But he was an All Conference Player 3 times. Like Coastal Carolina legend. I think he's better than Seth Hennigan. I mean, shoot, you go through. You know, there's more quarterbacks, is what I'm saying, but he's a damn good one. Hennigan. Mekhi Hughes, I wasn't even thinking him. That was a good call by you, Rob. And then besides that,
is Zeno still at UAB?
Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, not top 100 in the country, good. But I was gonna say UTSA. They had the edge rusher Trey Moore, who was a double-digit sack guy, but he transferred to Texas. So, but that we're used to that the G5 life where if a player balls out. A school like Texas can pay 10 times what you are able to. So, unfortunately for UTSA fans, Trey Moore is gone. But he was probably maybe the best player in the conference last year.
Oh, yeah.
Trey Moore, he's going to be an NFL guy. So.
Yeah, I think the AAC kind of got hurt from all those transfers in terms of these rankings, but at year's end in this video game, I fully expect there to be at least one person from the AAC in the top 100 players in CFB 25. But the
Keeney
AAC,
Tozer, long snapper, FAU will be the conference's lone representative.
we shall see. I'm interested to see how they do long snappers. I have a feeling they're going to give him the 55 overall special, as we saw on Madden. They make him a tight end, and
But
it's just a
tight end
mess.
so bad.
And it's just a mess.
Overall.
But Conference USA did get some good representation in the top 100, including the highest rated G5 player overall, Clay Webb from Jacksonville State, who I personally, I guess my ball knowledge is lacking. I was unfamiliar with him, transferred from Georgia to Jacksonville State. I think he is a very interesting story because, he came over from Georgia and he's still really good. You see guys transfer from these big time programs, and it's like they may still be good, but he's winning awards and offensive line awards at the wazoo. And so he talked about that on a podcast. I don't want to miscredit them because we're going to show it here. But Hadis Maximum on YouTube. Make sure to go check them out. But this was what Clay Webb had to say about his development headed in to last season at Jacksonville State.
You had it. It was a first.
Insanity.
There we go. It's up.
Hello, everybody. This is Mark Muhammad from Hadis Maximum, and I'm here with special guest Clay Webb from Jack State.
Is it
Clay Webb? I just want to read these accolades. I want to read them just to make sure I got them right. Here's the 2023 All-Conference USA, 2023 CFN First Team All-American, 2023 CFN Offensive Guard of the Year, First Team All-American, and named to the FBS Offensive Guard of the Year by College Football.
But yeah, so you hear that from him. He talks about the military background, Coach Trickett at Jacksonville State. So I think that was just an interesting perspective, kind of sort of to hear from a guy who transferred from a P5 program down to a lower level and is still finding success, happy where he's at, working with the coaches that are right there. And so I'm very happy to see some O-line representation, some G5 representation, and what seems like a really good person as the highest rated G5 player in CFB 25. So I think that was really interesting. And I don't want to forget about the most important part of this college football segment is our top three rebuild squads. If you got three, that's fine. If you got one, that's fine. But Christian and Drew, I'll let you guys take the reins on this first if you want. But let's hear who you guys are going to be using in College Football 25 and why.
So my first team that I'm going to rebuild will obviously be FAU. That's kind of a no-brainer. I really love the idea of being able to play a video game with guys that I have class with. I think that's pretty cool. Or guys that I've grown up with. So for me, being able to give a couple shout outs to a couple guys that I've grown up with is going to be pretty awesome. I'm going to start with my next one, UMass. And I'm going to have my boy Ahmad Haston as their starting quarterback. And I'm going to win the Heisman with him. He's their projected starter for this year. Kid's a dog. I'm excited to do that. Another one that I'm going to give a shout out to, it's not really a rebuild because they're pretty damn good, is Florida State. And that's on the sole reason of there is 5 Palm Beach County hailing kids on Florida State's roster this year. So being able to, once again, support the guys that I've literally covered since they were freshmen in high school. That's a cool one for me. But yeah, those are my big three. Miami will get a lot of love. Y'all saw the Cam Ward background earlier. Been real big on Cam Ward today. If anybody tuned into my Twitter, got a lot of heat from from the Liberty fans. I never thought I'd get cursed out by a bunch of people from Lynchburg, Virginia, but here we are. So, yeah, those are probably my top 4. Maybe App State too. App State would be fun.
Who we got, Drew?
So I put in my notes out of every conference what I'm doing. So kind of my criteria was they can't be like traditionally a power of their conference. So I started off with, for the SEC, South Carolina. I like their quarterback, Lenoris Sellers. They always have fun weapons. Like Xavier Legette just got drafted in the first round for out of South Carolina. The Big Ten, I put Nebraska. I really like what Matt Rule's doing. I really like Dylan Raiola. He's one of my guys that I think is going to absolutely ball out in Nebraska. Big 12, traditional power, but since they've moved up, not really. Houston, big Tom Herman guy over here. So his work with them was remarkable, and now they got Willie Fritz coming in. They're supposed to be the worst team in the conference, so don't worry, we're going to change that real quick. Coach Shula is going to get us. He's going to put up Coach Saban numbers with Houston. So then for the ACC, this was kind of a fun conference where you have a lot of options. I was thinking about Wake Forest, did not go with them. I went with Georgia Tech. Traditionally a pretty fun program. They've had guys like Jahmyr Gibbs who could have stuck it out if he stayed there. Been a early first round running back. Calvin Johnson went there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
like,
Megatron school.
Yeah, they've had some legends go there. FAU for the AAC. Will not even think about another school in the conference. I've thought about it. I'm like, who could I do? I'm like, nah. There's too much rival. A little bit of rivalry going on with too many schools where I'm like, can't do it. No.
You could do Rice. You could do what? No one has a rivalry with Rice.
I was thinking about Tulsa. Tulsa would be the only other option.
We should all go in and really tank the success of that one school.
Which one's that?
The green one.
UAB. What do you got against UAB?
Yeah,
not UAB.
Charlotte.
The cow patties. We could really tank the success of the lack of success of the cow patties.
Hopefully they do it in real life like they did from 2020 to 2022. So.
Listen, losing 56-14 is pretty damn bad.
Yeah, that is really bad. We'll move on. Sunbelt. I have no reason for this school. For some reason, I've just always really liked them. I think, it's like you guys have that school. It's like color, mascot. It's Louisiana. Go Raging Cajuns. I've always liked that. I don't know why, but I'll be rebuilding them to become. I did like I kind of liked them when Sunbelt Billy Napier was their head coach. They had Dolphin legend Robert Hunt on that team. They had Elijah Mitchell. They had Trey Ragus at running. They actually had a pretty loaded team for the G5. So we'll be bringing them back to that level. Mountain West, I really just don't like any of those schools, if I'm being honest. Boise State's the only one likable in my opinion, and they're too good. Like they're traditionally the best team of that conference. So I went New Mexico because cool logo. Conference USA, dude, I said Jacksonville State. Shout out Clay Webb. By the way, prediction, that dude will single-handedly get him to a bowl game. Like Conference USA is so weak. Clay Webb is extremely good. To be playing in that conference, that's an SEC baller. So Jacksonville State, I really didn't want to do a team out of Conference USA, but got to beat up on FIU somehow. And then the MAC, I did Buffalo, where my brother's going to school. Shout out, one of the only one of the only bulls I like out of in college athletics. So, my brother's there right now. So the football team's getting after it. I saw a video of the wrestling coach actually helping out the defensive lineman on some moves they could use
there you go.
To get to the quarterback. So that's pretty cool stuff. So fun fact about Buffalo, I kind of liked them. Do you guys remember Jarrett Patterson?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or 8 touchdowns one game. So he was there. Khalil Mack was there. So they've had some ballers at Buffalo. They beat us in 2018. So Lane Kiffin, one of the best coaches in FAU history. They beat us when we were playing at their place. We don't play very well in the cold. Pretty sure it was in October, September. It can get pretty cold up there.
Yeah, it's probably real cold up there.
Those are my teams right there. If I'm being honest, don't have a lot of knowledge on a lot of them. Besides a few. But yeah, well, those are the teams I'll be rebuilding. We'll see how much time I have. I'm saying that like I'm in 5th grade again, and I could just play video games all night. But yeah, we'll get to all of them somehow.
Oh yeah, no, I mean somebody tweeted out and they were like, "Oh yeah, adults don't realize they won't have enough time to play this game." The sleep is what'll be affected.
Yeah.
Will I be up until 4 a.m. and up the next day at 7? Maybe.
It's not sleep that's the issue. Y'all ain't seeing me on this show for a minute.
Yeah, man.
I'm calling out of work sick. I don't care. Like I'm playing this game. I don't care.
Well, Christian's calling out of work, so
I do it frequently anyway. It's fun.
He's invested. We're all invested in the NCAA 25 game. I won't give too many teams. We're running out of time here, but I will say one of the first teams I will be playing with is Hawaii out of the Mountain West Conference. The Rainbow Warriors. They got some firepower in that offense. Always, they can be after dark squad. So it'll be fun to play with them and be out there in Hawaii. I'm gonna make some like ridiculous travel plans. I'm gonna schedule Buffalo. Hawaii to Buffalo's got to be like
that's crazy.
Hawaii to Miami, Hawaii to Buffalo.
Like yeah, we're gonna be renting out we're gonna be doing something with an airline. We're gonna need an NIL partnership with Hawaii Airlines for my squad to make this work, but we'll make it work.
The Hawaii traveling Taylor Swifts with the amount of killing the environment that you're about to do.
Yeah. With this CFB game, what I'm interested to see, though, is how quickly over the next couple of years we see an NCAA basketball game, an NCAA baseball game, because there's a market for it. As we've seen with college football, everyone wants to play this game, but not everyone's a football fan. There's people who don't like football, which is crazy to me, but I respect it. You like what you like. And there's people out there who love baseball. And I've been dialed into the college baseball world recently with Summer League. I would buy and I would play the heck out of a college baseball game. Christian wouldn't like it because he doesn't like baseball, but it's okay. I would play it, and I know there's a ton of people out there who would play it too. Same thing with basketball. To take FAU back to the Natty, that's something they got to get there, and we got to win one on the game. So that needs to happen. And so I'm interested to see how quickly this develops. I think it'll be 2 years before the basketball game is back. Baseball might take a little bit. I don't necessarily know. There definitely has been baseball, but it hasn't been. It's been a while. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But we are out of time here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network. It is 10:01 p.m. We've covered a lot for you guys tonight. If you missed the first half of our episode, we talk everything with FAU football sleepers. Me, Christian, Drew, all give guys who we think are in for a breakout season this year for the Owls. We also talk Tim Pernetti's comments with the commercial appeal with Memphis. A ton of good stuff in the first half of the show. Also, some AAC basketball stuff. Second half of the show, all CFB 25. So, guys, Drew, Christian, thank you guys for hopping on with me tonight. To all the viewers, as usual, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're building this up. We're grinding. We're having a good time while doing it right alongside y'all. So thank you so much for tuning in. This will be posted on all of our platforms as well to go back and view after if you missed any of it. So everyone have a great rest of your night. We'll be back next week on a Monday at 9 p.m. Game drops at 4. I'll probably have to convince Drew, Christian, or Toby, one of them, to drag their feet to come sit on here with me that night. Maybe we'll see. We'll see one day next week, though, for sure. We'll be back with y'all talking everything going on in the world. So we'll see you guys next week. And thank you so much for tuning in.